I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a special morning edition of the Motherland Fort Salem AfterBuzz TV After Show. I'm your host, Kevin Allen, and we're here to break down our 6th episode, Up is Down. That's right, up is down, black is white, right is wrong. There's a lot happening on this show, most of it grief. And so we're gonna be hashing out our feelings together. And I keep saying we because I'm joined by an amazing team, my personal unit, Tori Weaver.
Yes, hey guys. Now you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of Scylla, but maybe this episode will change my mind.
Brian Santos.
Hello, shout it out. So excited to have Amalia here. I know you're going to introduce her, but just thank you so much for being here. Can't wait to talk about this episode.
You always spoil the surprise.
Sorry.
It's okay, no, it's fine.
Gunnar
Sarah.
Hey everyone, well, I'm just glad I was the one that spoiled it because I almost tweeted about it, but I'm so grateful to have Amalia here too and talk all things Scylla in this week's episode.
And if you at home haven't figured out yet, we have a very special guest with us today, Amalia Holm. That's right, Scylla herself. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad to be joining you, and being 9 hours ahead. It's just, yeah, I'm excited to exchange energies with you guys because I'm at the end of the day and you're in the beginning. So happy about that.
Okay,
and
yeah,
also very privileged to give Scylla's perspective on all of this because apparently I've come to Scylla's hate club. No, I'm kidding. No, I really like
strong word.
And her behavior, because it is a lot of legitimate questions that you post. So.
Yeah, and I feel like everybody in this episode is kind of living in these questions. The entire episode basically is the aftermath of the Spree attack on the wedding. Everyone's plagued by new experiences, doubts, insecurity, and most of all, grief. I thought this entire episode revolved around grief. Everyone's feeling it in their own way. What did you guys think?
I definitely agree question. As well. It definitely was a lot of things happening. I loved how everybody handled it differently. Raelle was definitely so conflicted, not knowing if Scylla was still alive, just like grieving her, even though she didn't even know for sure if she was dead or not, which was so hard to watch. Loved how Tally was like, had such a handle on her emotions. Like she knew that everyone else was really, really going through it like times 10. So she's like, I'm just going to put my emotions with Garrett on the back burner for now. And then I'm going to help you guys and I'll deal with that later. But definitely a lot of grief. I 100% agree.
Yeah, Tally, I mean, there's something more important came up. And when, oh my gosh, I'm so bad with her names.
Anacostia?
No, not Anacostia. The other bunkmate. It starts with a
Abigail?
Q. No.
Glory.
Glory. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was like, hey, what do you feel caught up on Garrett? She's like, no, I have other things on my mind. I was like, yeah, Tally's laser focused now in a whole new direction. Man, thanks for catching that. Glory, glory, hallelujah. All right, Tori, what did you think about this episode?
Yeah, definitely agree with you guys. Grief was definitely the theme throughout the episode, and everyone was grieving their own thing. Obviously, I mean, even Tally was kind of like grieving a romance, and I think if anybody here has been through a heartbreak, that can be just as like strenuous on your heart and your emotions as well. So I think they were all trying to figure out how to cope with their emotions from something that has happened to them, and I think this episode kind of revealed how triggering grief can be. To other people, because I mean, Raelle has lost her mother. Now she could possibly be losing Scylla. She doesn't know that she's alive yet. So just kind of like all these things just like triggering each other. And I think it was like nice to showcase how us as humans are able to deal with our emotions and the steps that we have to take to get through something. Because I think in this episode, we definitely showcase almost every step of the process.
Oh yeah, I think you're right.
And on your note, Tori, I just loved how well portrayed it was, in my opinion, how hard it is to stand next to someone who's in grief because you feel so hopeless, and there's very seldom anything you can say to make it better. It's just so much about confirming the feelings and being in it with them, and I think our unit really did that in this one, and especially dealing with like you said, Brian, like the uncertainty in Raelle's grief is just like upping it up to another level. That's the same with Tally, really, because she doesn't know the future of her relationship or if it's even a relationship anymore. Whereas with Abigail, it's just so definite, which is just a very different kind of grief in that sense. Not to say to compare one over the other, but it's different. And I love that the episode was so theme based like that.
And not just Abigail. I feel like her bodyguard, Bridey, shared her story of personal grief, and her mother's going through it as well. I mean, almost everyone we talked to in this episode is grieving somebody. I think except for the new instructor with the salva. She was the only one who was like having an okay day. Before we dive into specifics, Gunnar, let me hear your overall thoughts.
For me, I really latched on to obviously our big ending reveal at the end, but really I saw the more PTSD the side that Abigail was feeling, in the fragility of all that, like, in a sense, like what your normal is and your control is so easily shattered. And this wasn't an easy thing that happened to her. It wasn't like just she had a bad day. It was one of probably the worst days she's had, and how simple that one day can just shatter a lifetime of like what feels like structure and control. And Raelle, the destructiveness you feel with grief as well, that how she couldn't even understand anymore what logic was and just was off the rails. And for me, Tally's biggest focus I saw was her questioning her loyalty to her unit and to her army, and that how she doesn't get how she can't talk to one of her best friends now about this without disobeying another person that she has to respect and trust, and that is tearing her inside.
Okay. Amalia, so this is what I've been hearing is the last episode that you guys as cast and crewmates got to see before it went to air. So just as a viewer, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Well, I think I pretty much summed it up just in the fact that it's wonderful to see the unit joining in, I mean, it's sad, but in grief, and how powerful that can be when you share those hopefully unusual and overwhelming emotions. And I love that we got to see that with our unit. And I loved all the incredible like special effects and and that salva, like all the salva flying and all of that. Yeah.
I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff.
422. No. Sorry.
No, just I'm a sucker for flight on screen, and I feel like this show did a really good job of capturing the ecstasy of it and making it seem like a real thing with just the way she's floating, the wind in her hair. I was like, this looks like real flight. It didn't look like wire work. It didn't look like green screen. I was like, this is really flying. Oh my god.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I didn't even remember about when they did it in the beginning, like Scylla and Raelle. I totally forgot that they used that before. So when they like revisited it and they showed like Raelle seeing that again, I was like, oh god, I forgot they did that together. That's like their thing. And I'm like,
Yeah, it was their little cute rebellious thing, and now it is actually what they use for combat. So now when she's actually learning to use it, it's maybe we should like also think about how hard we can push someone who's in that deep of grief. I mean, that is a mental health state in itself, and they gave them a little too much salva, obviously. Handle it.
All right, so let's go through the episode character by character. I want to talk about Abigail's turmoil, the PTSD that Gunnar had mentioned. I want to talk about Raelle's coming to terms with the news regarding Scylla, and I kind of want to talk about Scylla herself. Obviously, she wasn't present in the episode physically, but her presence was definitely there, and I really think it's something to talk about. So when we start the episode, it's literally Abigail being debriefed. She's recounting the events of the prior episode, having to relive it, and this. One of you guys did mention this. It's especially tough for her. I think it was Gunnar, because she's been so determined and structured and focused and strong, and she has been killing it as a potential military candidate for this war college, and has her lineage behind her and a bright future ahead of her. And I feel like it all is now in jeopardy. Y'all agree?
I don't think in jeopardy. I think her view of it. I think her what is deemed important and what's not. I think it's gonna adjust. I think at the end, like obviously they had like the kind of like cliche, like oh, like I forgot something in my room, or oh, I got to go this way or whatever. But I think that's gonna make Abigail a bit more open to emotions and let in her own perspective of like I'm not just doing this for my Bellweather name. I'm doing this for myself, and what do I want out of it? And to also allow Tally and Raelle to influence her and see their perspectives.
Okay, that's cool. I would love that personally. I would love if she comes out of this stronger and with more resolve. I just worry that the same way that Raelle kind of had little flashbacks to moments that broke her concentration, I'm so afraid that Abigail's going to be running through the same thing. We saw the scene where she had nightmares. She's in complete denial of it. She was so determined to prove her competency with her mother and against her bodyguard, and struggled severely to meet her own expectations. And yeah, it might just be a rough patch, but I mean, she faltered a lot in that.
Yeah. I think with Abigail, my favorite part was when she did finally crack with the bodyguard. Like that was like super, super impactful, because it just showed, like you said, she was trying to hold everything in. She was trying to stay strong. She's trying to live up to that Bellweather name that's just so hard and fast military. But you know, they see these things, and this is very, very real with anybody in the real military as well, that you try to push things down, but it's definitely going to come to light in the end. And that's definitely what Abigail struggled with when she had that crack with her bodyguard.
Yeah, I think there was so much going on with just like her dealing with emotions. She has all the whole base is basically like whispering about her. We don't even know what they're saying, if it's negative or positive. She has these traumatizing flashbacks in her dreams, or just like in general. She has this bodyguard that she doesn't want. She's kind of like disappointing herself in a sense, because she wants to be able to push past these emotions. And it was just honestly heartbreaking to watch, because I think as people, we want to, we don't want to be the only thing that's standing in our way. And I feel like she, in a way, thinks that her own grief is in her way, and she doesn't want that. I mean, we've seen Abigail kind of knock down anything that's in her way, and I think it's really hard to face yourself in the mirror and realize that you are the problem, or your emotions are the problem. And it was so hard to watch, because it's like she wants to be super strong, and even when she was having the nightmares and everybody kind of like rallied around her to make sure she was okay, she still didn't break that wall down. Like the only time we saw her cry was in front of the bodyguard, someone who she knew had kind of shared the same experience. And even like she still hasn't really shown that emotion with her unit. Like she's still trying to be this tough girl that she wants to be. And I think it's hard. But Gunnar, I think you brought up a good point, because in the last episode, everyone was telling her how she doesn't really have to fight for much because of her last name. And I think this episode proves that like now she has even more to fight for because of her name and because of the experiences that she's went through. I mean, this child just went through a life-threatening situation just 24 hours ago. And that's a lot for anybody to hold. It's a lot for anybody to try to deal with. I mean, her life was literally in danger. And then we fast forward to the rest of the episode and we get some more information that's also kind of heartbreaking to her too, because I mean, she could be next. We don't know.
Oh yeah.
And not just her life, like her mother's life and her cousin's life, her extended family, like everybody. Exactly. And now, and that revelation that we got at the top of the episode, that the Spree are not just attacking witches, but they're coming after Bellweathers in particular. Exactly. So she's got that over her head now.
Yeah.
That's
and
heavy.
I think that exactly on top of what has already happened up until this point. I think that information is extremely heavy, because that means that your entire family, your entire lineage, which we've seen in this episode, she holds a lot of pride, behind her last name and her family and things like that. They're all in jeopardy, including herself. And there's almost nothing that she can do about it, because they're not all in the same area. Half of them have already been killed off. And that's just, I couldn't imagine. I could not imagine.
No. I couldn't either.
I was specifically touched by when Abigail says, "Are you making fun of me?" You guys remember this? It's when they're at, on a run with the unit and training, and Raelle and Tally says, "Are you gonna like go to the doctor or to their nursery and look up that leg cramp?" And I felt like she really cracked in a different way when she was like, "Are you making fun of me and my grief?" Because she feels so attacked from all around, like subconscious too, I guess. So therefore also from her own unit questioning her when she just needs to feel stronger than she is at this moment.
Yeah, I love that moment. found it very like moving in the fact that like Raelle, I think all of us probably took it how Raelle wanted it to be, like, oh, like the leg cramps, like we're gonna go along with whatever you want to call it. And then Abigail reacted how probably any of us also would have reacted, like, oh, you're making jokes of it now. I found it really like that showed that they're on each other's sides and they have each other's backs.
Yeah, and even when Abigail was like, I'm a beehive right now, just don't poke me. And I think you guys are making interesting points. Just when somebody's in grief, you don't really know what to do because there's nothing that you could really say or do to, be in their shoes or feel what they're feeling. But I think this episode kind of showed the boundaries around like dealing with someone in grief and just respecting however they choose to handle it, whether it's Raelle, whether it's Abigail, whether it's Tally. Just kind of like, if the person wants to deal with it alone, leave them alone. If they want you to just sit with them in silence, if they want you to just, believe whatever narrative they made up for themselves to help cope, that's what you have to do. And I think that was really portrayed and well written in this episode, because everyone has a different way of dealing it, and then everyone has a different way of like accepting support.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about Bridey a bit, because Bridey's an example of the after of the grieving process. She had gone through it. Abigail breaks down and cries in front of her bodyguard, and a little later, I assume, the bodyguard kind of opens up with her own story. I'm assuming not like with the goal of I need to make Abigail feel better, but just because she relates to what Abigail's going through, and shares her story of her own loss, losing her sister on a command. And I thought it was noteworthy that the reason that she lost one of her unit was because she acted hard and fast, going all in without really a second thought. And that's very much Abigail's MO.
Yeah, it was super powerful, especially the whole idea when she was like, I lost my eye because of that, and she can't come back at all. So I don't even feel like I deserve to live, let alone have, both eyes. I was like, dang girl, that is like a lot. Like she was really, really torn up for obvious good reason. That was definitely super hard for her to see. And it's like such a message that, like, again, grief, everyone goes through grief in a different way. And she was just doing it in a way where she was trying to honor the sister that she lost, which is so, so impactful. So I thought that was like the biggest moment there when she was like, I'm not going to fix my eye, even though I can, because I still have to honor her memory.
I took it a little differently. I saw it more as like, I used my sight and I made a bad call based on it. So I was blind all along. What's the point of even having an eye?
Wow.
That's no one else felt that way?
No.
Okay.
But it's interesting.
I don't know. I don't know. I like look for the arty stuff. I just but now the third griever, the main one at least in our episode, is Raelle. And you guys have brought this up already, that she is kind of spinning out of control in her own special way. Everyone grieves differently, and her process seems she's really stuck in denial, I think. Am I wrong? Or you mentioned that there were the 5 stages in this episode. I feel like Abigail was very much the anger side of like started in denial but moved to anger, but I felt like Raelle was in denial the entire time.
It's really hard to say whether she's in denial, because technically we found out later in the episode that she's right, that Scylla is alive. But she was just told the wrong information, which sucks, because you're already trying to process and compartmentalize your feelings. And so it's hard to do that when you don't have the accurate information, because then you have to do this process all over again. So it was tough, because you saw her. I think we saw this in classic Raelle like form. She is trying to follow her instructions, which were the information was that Scylla is dead, but also honor her own personal feelings and do what she thinks is right, which is that Scylla is still alive. And I think throughout this entire series, we've seen Raelle kind of combat the idea of structure and what Fort Salem is, but also staying true to her own beliefs and what she thinks is right. And so just seeing that in the most extreme way in this episode was just like gut wrenching, because like we as the viewers know the truth and she doesn't, but she also technically does know the truth, but she's trying to deal with the lie. And it was a lot for her to do. So I don't even know what I would call this stage of grief, because like I said, technically she's not in denial. I think it was just finding truth and finding peace in whatever the outcome is. Like I think she was just trying to create a narrative that made sense to her. Because I don't know if you guys have like dealt with grief, but you always try to like find a reason to help you deal with it. And so either whether she knew the truth, whether, Scylla is dead or alive, I think she just needed something to hold on to help her be with peace with it.
Well, I'd say, go on.
To continue on that note from Tori, I think that in a situation where we've kind of all agreed that it's hard to know what you say to someone in grief, I feel like Izadora, the necro teacher, is using that weak spot to manipulate her and give her exactly what will steer her in the right direction, being so heartwarming, like grief is stubborn and wild. I'm a little offended that that's used at like the title for the episode because it's used in the wrong way. But I mean, that's coming from me playing Scylla, so.
Yeah. Do you guys think that it would have helped her grieving process if she knew the truth? Not just that she was alive, but that, the whole spree thing, do you guys think that would have helped in her grief at all? Or do you think it's better to just know if she's alive or dead?
I don't. I think that it's going to eventually help her move on in some ways, because I feel like it's going to get much more destructive, and it obviously is going to be played out and affect her and Tally's relationship. But I feel like I honestly argue that Abigail's in denial and Raelle is in anger and rage because she can't accept the truth, which is a form of denial. But I think she has, like, she's getting signs that there could be that she's alive. She doesn't trust anyone. She doesn't trust the establishment in general. She always wants to rage against the machine, that she just can't believe it. And she has to like find all the proof first before she can accept it. So I guess it is denial, but I think the whole part about the spree, it's kind of like, I'm always a person like, you don't talk ill of the dead. And I feel like in a sense, like with history, you like talk good and bad. You always acknowledge heroes and villains of history's past. But I feel like when it's a newly deceased, you don't want to speak ill of them, because it's like, why kick a horse when they're down? And I think knowing that information was just going to hurt her more and just not help her process. I think affect her and Tally's relationship.
Yeah, because we can see Tally is battling with how she's going to keep this information, but also support. So I was wondering, if Tally ever felt like maybe it was the right thing to tell her. I don't know. It was just a thought.
I feel like Raelle can only handle so much as it is at the moment. I say that she's in denial, not because she's going like, no, you're wrong, I know she's alive, I have evidence, or anything like that. It's because she could barely process the information. She is almost like inert. She is spinning in place. She can't really function. Before she gets told like officially that Scylla is dead, she just cannot focus on a task. All she can do is pursue questions and then kind of just buzz. She can't stand in place, let alone do a task. I'm actually kind of surprised that she is able to support Abagail at all, because I feel like when Raelle is by herself, she's a mess. When she does get the news that Scylla is dead, she just kind of goes into this trance. So she is barely able to process or cope or anything the notion that Scylla is dead. And we as the audience, as far as we know, that's true.
I gotta jump in real quick, Kevin. So sorry. The chat
is
please
like jump in.
Screaming.
No, please, yes, scream at us.
They've been hashtag let Amalia talk for like 3 minutes. They're like so excited to hear your perspective. They love you so much, and they really want to hear about Scylla and Raelle. So tell us your whole perspective.
I was gonna wrap up.
Yeah, no. Just like literally, they're like going for it. They love hearing everything, but they're like, we love Amalia. We want to hear her thoughts on this. So like, what do you think about like this whole situation with Raelle, her going through her grief, and just their total relationship? Well, Amalia, I think you're on mute. Oh, there you
go. Big truck driving, so I just wanted to be
that's sweet. Thank you.
No, I just I'm so glad for all the engagement from the fans on their relationship, and it's a big topic. So I kind of need some help with the structure of these answers from you guys. Overall, of course, I'm very much pro the relationship, and because it's something that Scylla would never expect expect to feel again in her life. She was before she met Raelle, I noticed she was closed down for business, basically just for any trusting anyone. She was an idealist, working for cost, wanting to do the right thing, according to her analysis of the world order, and radicalized within that, of course. But other than that, pretty close down for human connection, I think. And throughout the time she spends with Raelle, having it as her mission to extract her and bring her to the spree, she just grows very fond of her. And there is actually, for once in her life, or again, after not having trusted anyone for a very long time, and maybe also considered other people as an emotional burden, being raised as a Dodger and having her parents taken away from her in very dramatic ways, murdered by the military. And just her class background as well. She didn't really trust anyone, and with Raelle, there's someone who's been showing up over and over again, even though Scylla knows and is ashamed of being so vague with all her answers, and really tries to be emotionally available, but has this shameful big secret, of course, that is in a way not shameful because it's a cause she believes in, but it's a secret and something awful in Raelle's world so far. So
I love that. The chat is loving you. They really are like Team Scylla and Raelle. They love you so much. And thank you so much for that. We love hearing like your perspective of it, of what you see, because of course last week we didn't give Scylla the most love. So I love hearing how you see it. And there's definitely so many different sides of their relationship, you know. And yeah, the chat loves you, and thank you so much for being here as well. So sorry, Kevin, continue.
No, it's totally fine. I really appreciate all of our fans. They're the ones that make us the ESPN of TV Talk. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, for being a part of this show, being active participants. It's awesome. If you want to keep doing that, you know, like, subscribe, 5 stars, whatever, all that stuff. We really do appreciate it. So no, thank you for jumping in. What I was just going to get to, though, is that Raelle has kind of this like whirlwind in place personality till she finally busts out of the place with the salva. I think she should have started closer to the fence, per se. If she's just going to leap over the wall. But she makes it to the beach. She actually makes it to the beach. She gets like right to the place where she expects to find Scylla and doesn't. And here's the thing. She doesn't actually like go in the lighthouse. She doesn't really get a chance to look. So I feel like, sigil or no sigil, she hasn't turned over every stone. And this is going to be her quest now. So how impactful do you think her getting out? And I mean, I love that her team came to rescue her. I thought that was an awesome moment. And, you know, telling Bridey, like, give us the chance to do the thing that you wish you could. And but they rescue her before she gets the chance to come to terms with what's happened.
Yeah, I want to just touch on that real quick, because I love the sentiment, but what I didn't really appreciate from Abigail on that part was kind of throwing it back in Bridey's face, if that makes sense. Like, she was using it as a way to kind of get her point across, but for me, it more came across like, you know, you couldn't save your friend. She's dead now, so let me save my friend, you know. And I appreciate the sentiment that she's really trying to do whatever she can to save Raelle. I'm so sorry to the chat. They're probably gonna drag me again. But that's just what I thought in that moment. I was like, why would you throw that back in her face? She obviously shared that with you in confidence, you know, such in a grief moment and something so intimate, and then you just kind of like, okay, let me just use it to my advantage, you know. So I loved how they saved her, but that's just what I thought. That's like me playing devil's advocate.
I completely agree.
I thought it was more of like this is a chance to save a life, you know. No one agrees with me on that.
I do.
I didn't see it that way. I feel like her delivery of it was so like in your face. Like, honestly, it made it sound like, if you don't let us go now, you're gonna have 2 people on your head. That's how I saw
you see, that's how I felt
what
too.
I saw. If she would have said
Okay.
like, if she done like, let me save my sister this time, like, I think she needed to deliver it more in the sense of like, let me get the chance to try to save my sister. Don't be the thing that stops me.
Yeah.
I definitely think like the delivery could have been a little bit better. But have y'all ever been in a situation where somebody just thinks that because they're not a part of the situation that it doesn't matter? And so I think, and even though her delivery could have been a little bit better, I think she was trying to connect it to her story. Like, you might not get it, but let me help you understand why this is so
Sure.
important to you. Like, you might not think that I care anything about her, that our connection isn't as strong, but I value her just as much of a sister as your sister. And so I think she was like trying to make a connection to help her. Cause like, I mean, if she didn't get her to realize it, they wouldn't have been there for Raelle. Like, they just would have been sitting there still arguing with the lady. So I think she had to say something to like make her feel it in the heart, to make her like go along with the plan to go help them, because they had to like drive hours or whatever off base. And so I think she was just trying to like break down that wall. Like, come on, we have to go. But I definitely get what you guys are saying.
Protocol and paperwork. Like, come on, it's not important. So now, having posed that question, does the fact that like, I mean, the sigil shows up, so she has evidence now that Scylla is alive, and we now, as the audience, come to find Scylla is alive. She's being detained somewhere. She's been quarantined by Anacostia, who told Tally, like, don't look into this. She's by Izadora, who has been told Raelle, don't look into this. And now Bad Cop shows up. Alder's going to start questioning her, and oh, lordy. Hey, Amalia, what was that scene like?
You know, as an actress, just so much fun. Knowing, like, because we've gotten to know throughout the scripts and playing out episode 1 through 5 who these women are, and that they're very powerful and what they're capable of. So just getting into that room with all that power, and the biddies tagging along too. Yeah. So to Scylla, this is like you're fighting a cause, and then all of a sudden you're captured, and you're gonna be in some way connection with like equivalent to Voldemort, like the worst, most powerful, or dictator or whatever, like the main villain, the most powerful person, and the scariest person, the one you've been raised to despite. So yeah, just loading that scene with all of that. And just also, I mean, I love Emilie and Demetria and Lynn so much, so it was just so much fun to finally get to be like working with them. And well, of course, I was just a tease for what's to come. So
well, before we jump into predictions, Bryant?
I was actually wanted to say too, I'm on Team Anacostia now. I don't think she's out for anybody this time. I think she's a real girl. She's there for us. So I'm on her side now.
I actually made a note to myself earlier. I was like, oh man, she's really not the most trustworthy person. Just I hate that she couldn't give Tally any information, but I was like, well, this is protocols, paperwork, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's the whole above the pay grade thing. I was like, okay, girl, I see you.
Because it is. It is,
yeah.
Amalia, since we got you here and we have the chat here as well, we wanted to take some time to do a little Q&A with you, if that's totally fine, if that's cool.
Absolutely. Sounds
wonderful. Bryant, I saw your hands clapping. You got a question for Amalia?
Yes, I do want to jump into the chat again because they're just amazing, sharing so many fun questions. So Ivan Soto has a question asking what it's like playing Scylla with like this, I guess, like a villainous character, but someone who's also showing that human side to them as well.
It's a dream come true. I mean, I've always wanted to do a villain, and I wouldn't typically be cast as a villain, I've experienced. So it was so much fun. And this is a villain that, like, at first, just reading the pilot and playing in the pilot that we did first, it was like, okay, so she's using her ability to seduce as her way to conduct herself as a spy. And then when that turns into true emotions, and all of a sudden she's charged her weapon with love instead of the mission, basically. That was just so much fun to play around with. And I love how insecure she is in a sense. I mean, she's, or not insecure, but she's so vulnerable. I just remember something you guys talked about last week, that you said it's a little bit frustrating that Scylla's not like obviously bad or obviously like regret what she does, and that she's a bit ambivalent in it. And I just
Yeah.
feel like that's such a humane thing in her, and it makes her unpredictable. But as are all human beings, really, when we are true to our emotions. And I think that's what she's really trying to be. And so therefore, I'm trying to be that with her. So it's
I
just
love that.
The
very
fact
fun.
that we go back and forth on her so often, and we're so like, is she good? Is she bad? I mean, it's a testament to the writing, the direction, and obviously your
Exactly.
performance. This
It's
is
making me very frustrated.
it's morally gray at its absolute finest.
Yeah.
What a great double agent! Like, just
hmm
yeah, well done, well
And I
done.
wanted to set you the fact that you mentioned, like, the whole sexuality part of it. It's crazy that I didn't even think about that. Like, using that like seductiveness, but like in a way that's not so like that we've seen played out on TV. Like that's very very like off the cuff and really really too overbearing. Like it's just very like seductive and sensual and empowering and feminine energy, but not too much. So I love that so much, and just the empowering moments of this show is just amazing. I love it.
That's so glad to hear that. Yeah, I'm also glad that it's not like, I mean, it would be completely out of place if she showed up in high heels. So just like stepping on around
Yeah.
and for
Pull
what
out
I
her whip.
so I love that too. But that's, I mean, it's yeah, only it's intelligent writing that will have her go in such like like smooth criminal in the sense that
Yes.
she's just a fellow rebel. Um, yeah,
Well,
tapping
I
into
think when you say seduction, that the connotation with that word is always like biting
Negative,
lips
yeah.
and twirling your hair, and not even negative, but just that there's a very specific type of seduction. Where is that's not the case. Seduction can have a much broader spectrum, and Scylla is definitely seducing with more than just like one surface level tactic. It's a much greater, deeper, truer form of seduction, but that ends up being genuine as well. So yeah, all the nuance. I love it. Sorry, do you have a question for Amalia?
Yes, I've noticed that when we have like other guests from the show, you guys are amazing at just getting in the mind of your character. And I kind of want to ask, like, I guess a Scylla question. Do you think there's any time in the script where her cooperation with the spree and her love for Raelle kind of like are equal, or do you think that one is still over the other? Because I mean, in this last episode, we kind of see that she's about to be put through a lot. Do you think she ever like her love for Raelle ever kind of outweighs her, I guess, respect or cooperation with the spree?
Yes, I'd say that it's equal in the beginning of episode 5 when she's just gotten the little bird's head uh, from Raelle, and she's going back to her room, and she's like, honestly, Spree, she couldn't get me in. There's nothing else I can do. So I'm just gonna respect that in her. Like, this is my situation, and let's figure something else out. Like, and yeah, because she's showing mutual respect to them both, I'd say. Even though, I mean, from episode 3, she's already pretty, and 4, she's already scared, like, of what they're able to do. We will learn further on, like, how she, like, a little bit more about her background, which will explain her dynamic with the spree, I think, and what we've seen so far. But um, on your specific question, I'd say that it's when she decides not to deliver her at 6 o'clock Penelope Street in episode 5. That's where it just takes over, and I'd say that up until then, her life has not really been worth living. So that's also why she can get so radicalized and fight for such a great cause and risk her life. But with Raelle, life has become worth living again, and yeah, she wants to do that now, and therefore everything is upside down.
Up is down. I thought it was a very fitting title for this episode. Gunnar.
Speaking on then the character of Scylla and yourself, I love talking with the other cast about how much their characters impacted themselves, and how much do you think, especially with this kind of how we've described as a bit toxic, but I even still defend that it's still somewhat healthy or somewhat layered relationship. How much has this impacted your going on now of like how you see yourself and how you see relationships?
I always think it's a hard question to or hard to answer a question like that, because I think it's very hard to pinpoint like specifics that I'm learning in life. Just having deep conversations with Elliot Lawrence on relationships was very rewarding. And we would discuss like our private lives too. And that was a lot of fun. And like, what is love and what are we going to use it for in our lives, and like romantic love specifically. I'm sorry, I don't think I can give you a substantial enough answer on that question. Just that people in love are very brave, entering new dimensions of their, like, this sounds pretentious, but of their soul and of their inner space, and are willing to show that to someone, even though they have no idea if they can trust them or not, but they just decide to like dive right into it. And also just the fact that it's so impactful, and it's so, when someone is just coming back to you over and over again, like Raelle does for Scylla, even though she can't give sufficient answers, that's just like, that's really something to hold on to if you ever get that in your life, like someone who will show up even though you're not, and who understands your love language in the sense that Raelle understands Scylla's.
Yeah,
that is important.
Exactly. I love how you said internally, because it's external, it's another body, but it's yourself too. You're letting every piece of you show. And I like the word of dimensions too, the layers of it.
All right. Speaking of new territory, let's get into our predictions. Now, yeah.
And now,
Amalia, feel free to make all the faces you want, but you haven't seen. Well, you've been for the last episodes. You haven't seen them, but you've been there. So try to keep spoilers to a minimum. I don't want to spoil anything for the people in our chat. All right. So, who has an idea of where this is going? Because where I see it, I feel like a lot of stuff is going to come into light. There's going to be drama once Scylla is found out. Tally's theory is now out in the open, and she has to defend it, even though she didn't let Raelle in on it. I just feel like it's going to be a mess relationship-wise. Anybody? I know it's a hard subject to talk about, because I'm like, I don't want to see everything all fall apart.
See, I think things are going to fall more into place. I think we're going to see the where the rest of the season's going, because I don't think Scylla's going to get found out quite yet. I think we're going to maybe learn about Tally's knowledge next and their relationship before, and let that both fall apart and resolve before Raelle can move forward with then dealing with the information of Scylla still alive, and now she has to know the woman I love is also my literal enemy in war, and what that means for her. And I think we're going to see a darker side of Alder for sure on this next episode.
Ooh, yeah. Bad cop.
Yeah.
Brian?
I don't know. I'm going to shout out the chat again, because they have some amazing predictions.
Okay.
Some of the chat saying that Raelle's mom could possibly be alive still, and she is the leader of the Spree. That's a crazy prediction. We'll see how that goes. Hannah even says that Anacostia is going to help Scylla escape, which that would be interesting. I would kind of be Anacoshia's #1 stan if that happens. But my personal prediction is I want to see more of Cravenwood, because I know everyone in the chat is lovers of Scylla and Raelle, but I'm also a lover of Cravenwood, so I do want to see that development, and I do want that epic love story that we're getting from Scylla and Raelle. I want Garrett to leave his wife for Tally. That's all I'm going to say.
Me too.
Sorry.
I'm not sure like what episode this is going to play out in, but I think that Tally's knowledge is going to be like revealed in a public way, like something like thanks to Tally's the personal I don't know, something like that. And then Raelle is going to have to like go back in the bunk and question like, why didn't you tell me? How did you know this and tell everyone else type thing? And I think we're also going to figure out why the Spree is specifically attacking Bellweathers. I don't know why, but I think we're definitely going to find out more into that narrative, because I think it was something that like they threw in there and we're just all kind of like, what's going on?
I just assumed they were just going after the big guns, but it's probably something personal. It's a very good point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Amalia, so much for being here. This show is all the better for your presence. We really appreciate having you on their show, and the fans obviously do too. So where can they find you online?
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast, and I don't feel like Scylla's bullied by this panel anymore.
I feel like our opinion, that's my other prediction. I feel like our opinions are going to completely flip.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think I still have to work on Tori, but
Yeah.
other than that, I am so grateful to join you guys, and it was a lot of fun. Interesting predictions, and the fans can find me on Instagram where I'm Amalia JA in one word, and on Twitter where I'm Amalia JA.
Cool.
Yes.
Gunnar?
You guys can find me at my new handle on Twitter and Instagram at the Gunnar Thomas. No longer underscores Tori.
Yes.
Sorry.
You guys can still find me on Instagram at Toxic Model. If you guys have any
Well, I threw to you next. I hoped you had changed.
Yeah, no. If you guys have any recommendations of what I can change it to, that's still cute. But me, throw that in there. And then Twitter at Tori with 2 E's.
Yes.
Right.
Love the chat. The chat is screaming that you called us out for bullying Scylla, so we love it. So fun. They're like living. We love everyone in the chat. We love you,
Yes,
Amalia.
we do.
It was so fun. I'm Brian Santos. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at @TheBrianSantos.
And I am Kevin Allen. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Allen Says, Instagram at Kevin Allen Graham. Thank you all so much for being here for another installment of the AfterBuzz TV After Show for Motherland Fort Salem. And we'll be back next week for what's going to be an amazing episode. Boy, I can't wait. Have a good day. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.